is stuck on pretty much the same deck for this tournament.
Darin, one of the more talented Texas players, the crowd that includes Tyler Lytle and Will Craddock. Darin is fresh from Pro Tour San Diego, actually.
Okay,
do
we know how he did?
He day two'd, but did not finish out well from there. I believe he started off like 5-3 and then just had a rough time of it after that.
Eventually dropped on the 7th loss.
I think he may have played it all out, but yeah, did not cash. He's back with a vengeance in standard here, and it looks like he is under pressure. Brady.
Interestingly, this is the same deck he lost to last time. He lost Nathan Zamora playing red-green yesterday. He gets a second chance at beating red-green. These gentlemen are apparently still in game 1.
This is a really interesting attack. Hal has 3 Boros Reckoners. I assume they're attacking either Darin or that Soren. I honestly don't know which, because the Soren's on 6 loyalty, which means it's threatening to take them all.
Probably has to. Yeah, he probably has to deal damage to the Soren.
But with Darin on 7, depending on where his hand is, he's threatening the ability to have Rampager, maybe Searing Spear.
Maybe
Darin's got a lot of
He doesn't have to deal too much damage to the Soren, because as long as Darin's forced to jump block, he can just redirect Reckoner damage back to Soren.
Except that Darin can keep Reckoner from getting dealt any damage as long as he keeps one Cartel Aristocrat out of combat, which you see that he's done here. So, looks like he's waiting to see what Hal does.
Now, the punchline here is that Hal does have a Searing Spear in his hand, so that Soren will not get ultimated.
I, for one, am a little bummed.
You want to see the Soren steal 3 Reckoners.
I did. That would be one of the better Sorens I've seen in my day.
So the block, all 3 sacks, no damage to Boros Reckoners. So the question: will he be able to get the Soren ultimated? I mean, we already know the answer is probably not.
Yeah, Hal would have to make a pretty serious and grievous error here to let that happen. And he says, Searing Spear Soren. Soren's down to 3. Aaron draws a Blood Artist. All right, we might have a little something going on now.
Soren down to 3. The last card in Brady's hand, I believe, is a Flinthoof Boar.
Yeah, he cast it.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, you did cast that after post-combat. So he had no cards in hand. We see a second Soren, a Searing Spear, I
believe that's a Blasphemous Act.
Blasphemous Act.
He obviously can't cast that for quite some time against 3 Boros Reckoners. But he's getting there, if he can start chewing through these guys somehow. He's going to make a Vampire with Soren.
It's not a problem where, like you say, the Blasphemous Act is good once there's no Boros Reckoners on the table. But if there's no Boros Reckoners on the table, then you probably already won.
I agree. If he can get to that state, he'll be in great shape. It's going to require a lot of peels for that to happen. And at this point, it's kind of... the pressure's on Darin to really manifest something relevant.
Right. I mean, he needs, 8 creatures to die before he dies?
Yeah. To be fair, any deck can do it. It's certainly the Aristocrats. If he draws, say, a Lingering Souls next turn, he's in actually very strong shape.
So he can block here with the Lifelink Vampire, but he's going to have one of the other 2 creatures block if he wants to survive this turn.
Yep. I imagine he's going to put Lifelink on Flinthoof Boar, probably.
To make sure it gains the life.
Yeah, that way it actually gains life as opposed to dealing damage to a Boros Reckoner. But
right. I mean, he's in the awkward position right now where he actually has to get rid of his own Blood Artist, isn't he?
I'm looking at it, and I can't really think of a block that lets him not have to do that. However, he can put, Aristocrat and Vampire onto Flinthoof Boar, and then Blood Artist onto a Boros Reckoner, and that will allow him to, just kill that Flinthoof Boar off. He'll gain 2 life, taking 6. It's not the end of the world. It'll be on 3, still has his Soren.
There would be 4 drains then, and would put Hal Brady down to 4.
Well, he can't sack the Blood Artist. He'd have to, yeah, actually, I guess he doesn't have to do it.
Hal can first strike down the Blood Artist, so it's only 1 trigger instead of 4.
Yeah, exactly. So he would have to play it that way.
So instead, he chumps on Reckoner.
And gives pro-green here, so he's going to take the 6. He's opting to try and peel one of those Lingering Souls with this line. I think that's fine.
So he's taking 6, Darin drops down to 2. Yeah, and I do like that.
Yep, I agree with his attack here, or with his block, I should say. Really wants Lingering Souls. That's one of the better draws. Another Blood Artist might be relevant.
Another Blasphemous Act.
Well, Darin can go out in style if he wants.
Yeah, he can 39 himself.
I'm trying to see if he's dead still.
Well, hold on, to be
I
fair,
don't think so.
yeah, because of how it works, even if he does Blasphemous Act, there are 7 creatures in play, but the Boros Reckoner triggers do resolve before the Blood Artist triggers, so it doesn't actually work.
He cannot Blasphemous Act Hal to death with the Boros Reckoner's play. If he could Blasphemous Act on Hal's turn, he'd be...
right, if it was an instant,
it
would work. He would cast it on Hal's turn and win the game.
So now, very quickly, throwing all of his creatures under the bus.
This block becomes pretty unenviable.
I think he has to put the Aristocrat on the Burning Chancellor. Is there nothing? I couldn't tell if there was anything, but I know you can't put Cartel Aristocrat on a Boros Reckoner because if it deals damage, you're dead.
Right.
So
you're at 2.
Yeah. Even the life gained is not going to be enough.
All right, so that was actually game 1. Hal Brady now up a game on Darin Minard.
Red-green aggro is a pretty good matchup for the Aristocrats in general. 3 Boros Reckoners, though, is tough. That's one of the creatures you have to remove from the board. You can't just allow it to sit around because it shuts off those Blasphemous Acts.
Yeah, we actually saw this matchup in our top 8 this morning. It was Drew Freddy and Zach Chrisan were playing it. It was a close one. We actually saw the red-green aggro deck come out on top.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was, I think, some pretty good draws there. Like, you know, there are, it seems like the best draws for red-green aggro are still a little tougher Aristocrats to deal with, but you know, it has a lot of good things going for it in the matchup.
Yeah, I think it's generally favorable, but certainly, you know, losable. Especially, you know, if you don't have the right cards lined up. Moving over to the sideboard, we see Darin. He has Pillar Flames in his sideboard. That's an interesting one. Along with Vampire Nighthawks, which I'm personally not running in my own list, but they're strong in this matchup.
I mean, I certainly think I would side them in here. That seems like a card you'd really like to have.
In my case, I'm not running them just, you know, as a concession. I'm just, you know, taking a little bit less of a percentage out of this matchup. But Darin probably saw how much red-green aggro was in the room yesterday, decided to come prepared. Probably going to pay off. Moving over to Hal's sideboard, he has access to 4 Skullcrack, 2 Electrickery, 3 Mark of Mutiny, 3 Volcanic Strike, and 3 Mizium Mortars, putting him in the strange position of having 15 cards that are all somewhat boardable in this matchup. Skullcrack prevents things like Blood Artist's life gain.
Yeah, I don't think you would do that.
From damage. That comes up. I'm just saying, you know, you could think about it.
Right.
Electrickery clears out Lingering Souls and Blood Artists. Not so bad. Mark of Mutiny, an answer to Falconwrath Aristocrat. Volcanic Strength makes your guys unblockable. That one I think we're for sure bringing in. And Mizium Mortars, which, you know, is a reasonable Bonfire-esque sweeper, but probably not powerful enough to actually play in this matchup.
Of those, like I said, and I think you said it as well, the Volcanic Strength is the standout card. Yeah. That's the one that's going to help you. Aristocrats has the ability in these matchups to kind of like turtle up. It can create this shelve like Blood Artist, Cartel Aristocrat, where it stops taking damage. Volcanic Strength is one of the great ways it has to break through that shell.
Yes. I don't know. If I'm Hal, I might feel like getting spicy. Just bring in 1 Skullcrack.
Just one Skullcrack?
Just want to catch him once.
Just to keep him honest.
Yeah, I got to keep him honest. I mean, can you imagine, like, if you saw a Skullcrack, even in a game you won, like, wouldn't that just change your world if you're Darin? You're just like, oh my... If he has 2 mana up, I can just like never go for these Blood Artist kills. Like, I just can't kill him on the spot.
To be fair, you only get 1 trigger with it, you know, unless they right, because they trigger Blood Artist 1 at a time.
Blood Artist does trigger 1 at a time, but say you did something like cast Blasphemous Act.
Okay, and then in response they Skullcrack.
Yeah, in response to well, they allow the Blasphemous Act to resolve, of course, and then Skullcrack.
I mean, but it's not the life gain in that situation that you care about. Typically, when you Blasphemous Act on a Blood Artist board, aren't you lethaling your opponent?
Not always. I've definitely done it when it wasn't lethal.
Sure, not always, but I mean a fair amount of the time.
I've also done it a lot of the time. You know, when you're keeping a Cartel Aristocrat around. And
okay, so you're saying you don't do it a lot. Okay, sorry. Okay, continue.
No, I mean, I think that it comes up where you're just doing it for value, for life, to remove, like, you know, some good creatures from the board and also just reverse life totals where, you know, you're leading into it's like 8 to 16, you change it, it's like 16 to 8. That's much more favorable. And it also, you know, is how you wind up attacking with it. Like on the turn where you're going to swing with a Cartel Aristocrat maybe to finish the job, or a Falconwrath Aristocrat, you might as well kill all the creatures first.
So it's like sometimes good against Blasphemous Act.
Yeah, and the prevention. Correct me if I'm wrong. Skullcrack does prevent damage prevention effects, right? So
right. So it'll stop protection. It stops protection.
Which can kill the Cartel Aristocrat as well. And Darin off to a quick start with Blood Artist. Hal on the draw. This is good for Darin because if Hal takes the time to bother Pillar Flaming Blood Artist, the best answer to it, then he's not going to be able to deploy an actual threat this turn. And you see that's exactly what happens. Darin gets to untap. Hal still has no creature.
Yeah, Darin
not the worst.
Yeah, Darin on the play here, he's gone all the way to turn 3 without seeing a creature from Hal's side of the board. He gets the first creature hitting the board is Nighthawk here.
Yeah, Darin's Vampire Nighthawk, we just talked about it. It's obviously very strong. And again, Hal is in the exact same spot. If he wants to play a creature, he'll have to take a hit from the Nighthawk. He has the decision, takes the removal spell.
Yeah, Hal has lands 4 and 5 in his hand, which turn out usually are pretty dead cards in this match, just in his deck in general. He usually wants to stop drawing lands at about 4.
Darin with Isolated Chapel, Vampire Nighthawk, and Doom Traveler. He's like, you got more?
Yeah.
Deck only runs 8 removal spells, bro. What are you gonna do?
Boros Reckoner for Hal Brady. He's gonna be in the unenviable position of trying to race Vampire Nighthawk.
I remember when that was a thing.
Yeah. Typically does not end well for the player doing it.
Darin has his own Boros Reckoner. Probably not going to be blocking if Hal attacks. We have the Vampire Nighthawk rolling, and Hal probably can't even afford it, but he's going. Darin immediately takes the damage, doesn't think twice. I imagine Hal's playing his other Reckoner, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we see second Reckoner from Hal. He then follows it up with bring Emissary into Flint of 4, bring himself down to just 1 card in hand, but now having 11 power on the battlefield.
Pretty serious board state we've got going on here. Darin, I believe, has land, Cavern of Souls, in fact, and Sorin in his hand.
Right, so Darin has land, he has Cavern and Sorin, and I don't believe he has a third card.
No.
But he still has the Nighthawk, which is racing. It's, incrementally getting him farther ahead.
And Sorin just making a blocker is going to be a little obnoxious here for Hal. The lifelink will, offset the race a little bit more. It distracts Hal from actually attacking Darin's life total, which is what he wants to be doing.
Yeah, so he plays Sorin, pluses it, makes the lifelink vampire token, passes the turn. So he has 3 blockers up now for Hal's 4 attackers. And Hal will just swing the Boros Reckoners.
Yep, he obviously can't send Burning Emissary and Flint of 4 into that Boros Reckoner. A little scared.
So if you're Darin, do you feel like you have to trade away your Boros Reckoner, or would you rather kind of just throw some guys into the attack?
I think that we can throw guys for a little bit. We've got that Vampire. If we bust the Vampire, we obviously pretty much have to bust the Doom Traveler as well, since the trigger's going to be able to kill him anyway. But I think we can do this for like 1 more turn before we have to start doing anything else.
And now he agrees that he's going to put a 1/1 on each of the Boros Reckoners. And of course, rather than first striking, Hal lets the guys hit the Reckoners, redirects the 2 damage back to Sorin. So Sorin drops down to 2 counters. And Spirit Token for Darin.
Pyreheart Wolf, that'll change some of this math.
Yeah, Pyreheart Wolf, this is a... How many of these are in Hal? It's a 1 of in Hal's deck?
Yeah, Hal's only got 1, but that's all you need.
Absolutely.
Darin, a little bit flooded, draws his 7th land. And it looks like he's going to have to shift, move back onto defense.
Yeah, so, I mean, as much defense as you can actually do against a Pyreheart Wolf.
Which is not a lot. Darin's 2 Pillar of Flames in his own sideboard are what he's hoping to draw right now. That'll take care of the Pyreheart Wolf for good, and actually enable him to put this race a little bit back in his favor.
Really, at this board state, though, it shows why Boros Reckoner is just such a nice card against aggro, right? Even though Darin has to be double blocking, the Reckoner is just going to start eating creatures.
Darin goes against Art, but he does not want to go on the defensive. He's taken the aggro. He makes an emblem with Sorin, and he attacks.
Besides, he just can't. So it seems like he's just saying he cannot win the aggressive game.
Sure.
That's what it says here. So Hal, the only block he makes is he puts Pyreheart Wolf on the Boros Reckoner. It's going to undie into a 2/2, and Hal's going to have a mighty counterattack here.
He gains 3 life off of that Vampire Nighthawk. That's pretty nice. And yeah, this is the race.
Deal 6. And then we see Hal on the untap. He has 13 power. Darin at 22. A 6th land for Hal Brady and 1 unknown card. 1 from each player. We know Darin's card is a land. Hal's, we are not sure of.
Yeah, Darin really doesn't want to be facing this amount of damage. He wants to be facing like 3 less so that Hal's just not automatically threatening to kill him on the next attack.
Yeah, I mean, even if he holds back all his creatures, I'm not sure that he has a reason. I think he still might be dead in 2 swings. It's pretty close here. If Darin's counted it out, it might be that, swing or no swing, this is a 2-turn clock.
Sure. I feel like just by virtue of the Vampire Nighthawk, he could survive an additional turn, but whether he could survive that turn with outs, that's a much steeper question, and I think the answer to that is probably no. So he's going on this aggressive plan.
Hal actually leaves back 1 Boros Reckoner, presumably so that he can tango with Darin's Boros Reckoner. Just He's worried his own life total's gone to 10. And if you look at the board right now, you know, Darin does have 9 power in play.
Yep. Well, he sends everything.
Yep.
He's decided to just go for it.
Tanks on a bit, and then decides, yeah, to swing the entire team. That's a swing of 13.
That gives Darin the potential out of Sorin, for one thing. His Pillar of Flames now are lethal damage, unless Hal has something else. He has another Boros Reckoner.
Right,
Okay.
interesting enough, without another creature there, Darin moves himself up to 27, and actually is not dead on the next attack.
Oh,
so
okay.
if Hal didn't have that creature, you know, this line actually does work.
Darin wants anything that's not Cavern of Souls this turn.
Doomed Traveler is his draw.
That's slightly better than Cavern of Souls, I'd say.
Yeah, so it gives him an extra blocker. Remember, Pyreheart Wolf, I mean, it gives him an extra half block.
Yeah. 0.5. It's a blocker that can turn into an attacker, though.
And now the problem is that Boros Reckoner on defense is doing a lot of work. Darin with his flyers can swing 5 and swing 5 this turn and then 5 next turn. So, you know,
Yep. I think he probably he has to send at least the Nighthawk, and there's really no reason to not send the Spirit as well, because
2 and 3 blockers are the same. They block the same number of creatures.
So you might as well. The only motivation to doing that would be to like maybe trip Hal up and make him do something
Hal's
wrong.
down to 5. Darin moves up to 15 from the 3 damage from Nighthawk as opposed to the 2. Doomed Traveler's cast. He will be able to block 1 creature. Will it be enough? 15 life. You know, and I think a
Pillar of Flame.
A Pillar of Flame.
Darin's ability to block.
And that'll be the game,
yeah,
the match. Hal Brady wins 2-0 over Darin Minard. I actually really like the line that Darin had chose to play that game on. It looks like he's so far behind, but I actually, you know, if Hal doesn't top deck that kill spell, I think Darin gets the race.
I think so too. I'd have to go back and do the math on that exact board, but it looked good for Darin. I think it was going to be very tight. But yeah, Hal had the cards he needed. Specifically, he had 3 copies of Boros Reckoner per game. It's a little above the average.
Yeah, the 3 copies of Boros Reckoner. To be fair, like, while 3 copies of Reckoner are really great on Hal's side, 3 copies of Reckoner on Darin's side is way scarier.
Yes, yes. So yeah, that match dominated by Boros Reckoner.